In 1957, just a few months before the Royal Ice Cream Parlor sit-ins here in Durham, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, in which he first articulated what he saw as the ultimate goal of the civil rights movement, the creation of a more beloved community. Just a few years later, in 1961, Durham Tech was founded. We started small. We only had 34 students, 5 faculty members, and 3 programs. But we started right. Our board and student body were integrated from day one, and our mission was focused squarely on connecting local residents to opportunity. Today, we serve more than 18,000 students across 7 campuses in Durham and Orange counties, with over 800 faculty and staff members supporting the educational, professional, and personal aspirations of our students and the needs of our community. This year, we are celebrating 60 years of students finding a place where they belong. 60 years of advising students that open a door to dreams. 60 years of teaching in areas like electronics, English, and ESL. 60 years of science experiments, equipment simulations, and basic skills. 60 years of footsteps, walking to and from classes in the Nathaniel B. White Building. 60 years of cheers at graduation. And 60 years of that phone call or email or Zoom call with a job offer. 60 years of a Durham Tech dedicated to creating Dr. King's more beloved community, where all are welcome and all work together for the betterment of our entire community.
Approximately 60 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his commencement address entitled The American Dream at Lincoln University, a historically Black college and university. Historically Black colleges and universities, otherwise known as HBCUs, were established to serve the educational needs of Black Americans, providing opportunity and hope for many Blacks who were generally denied admission to traditional white institutions. Similarly, our nation's community colleges provide access and opportunity to a diverse student population overrepresented by students with many identities, notably low-income, first-generation, immigrants, and students of color. Additionally, community colleges provide access to high-quality and affordable post-secondary degree opportunities for all learners, creating avenues for social and upward economic mobility. As an immigrant, a Black man, a first-generation student, a student of color, and a graduate from an HBCU, I have benefited from the American dream. Today, in celebration of Durham Technical Community College's 60th anniversary, the Men of Color Scholars Institute members give honor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s The American Dream speech.
América es esencialmente un sueño que aún no se ha cumplido. Es el sueño de una tierra donde los hombres de todas las razas, de todas las nacionalidades y de todos los credos pueden vivir juntos como hermanos. La sustancia del sueño se expresa en estas sublimes palabras, palabras elevadas a proporciones cósmicas. Sostenemos que estas verdades son evidentes, que todos los hombres son creados iguales, que son dotados por su Creador con ciertos derechos inalienables, que entre ellos están la vida, la libertad y la búsqueda de la felicidad. Este es el sueño.
One of the first things we notice in this dream is amazing universalism. It does not say some men, but it says all men. It does not say all white men, but it says all men, which includes Black men. It does not say all Gentiles, but it says all men, which includes Jews. It does not say all Protestants, but it says all men, which includes Catholics.
Each individual has basic rights that are neither conferred by nor derived from the state. To discover where they came from, it is necessary to move back behind the dim mists of eternity, for they are God-given. The American dream reminds us that every man is heir to the legacy of worthiness, but with the shape of the world, today does not permit us the luxury of anemic democracy. The price America must pay for the continued exploitation of the Negro and other minority groups is the price of its own destruction. The hour is late, the clock of destiny is ticking. It is trite, but urgently true that if America is to remain a first-class nation, she can no longer have second-class citizens.
Some of the things that we must do if we are to make the American dream a reality. First, I think all of us must develop a world perspective if we are to survive. The American dream will not become a reality devoid of the larger dream of a world of brotherhood and peace and goodwill. The world in which we live is a world of geographical oneness, and we are challenged now to make it spiritually one.
در واقعیت ما باید با هم برادرانه زیستیم یا همه با هم از بین می رویم. ما باید همه با هم برسیم که ببینیم تنها نمی توانیم زندگی کنیم. هیچ ملتی نمی تواند تنها بماند. ما باید با هم زندگی کنیم. ما باید به فکر همدیگه باشیم.
Another thing we must do is to get rid of the notion once and for all that there are superior and inferior races. The whole concept of white supremacy rests on this fallacy. If we are to implement the American dream, we must get rid of the notion once and for all that there are superior and inferior races. This means that members of minority groups must make it clear that they can use their resources even under adverse circumstances. We must make full of constructive use of the freedom we already possess.
Finally, if we are to implement the American dream, we must continue to engage in creative protests in order to break down those barriers that make it impossible for the American dream to be realized. To do this, we must get rid of those two strange illusions that have been held by so-called moderates in race relations.
First is the myth of time advanced by those who say that you must wait on time. If you just wait and be patient, time will work the situation out. Time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of irrational emotionalism and social stagnation. We must get rid of the myth of time. There's another myth that bases itself on the species of educational determination and leads one to think that you can't solve this problem through legislation. You can't solve this problem through judicial decree. You can't solve this problem through executive orders on this part of the President of the United States. It must be solved by education.
We must get rid of these illusions and move on with determination and with zeal to break down the unjust system we have in our society
so that it will be possible to realize the American dream.
Dr. King delivered that commencement speech over 60 years ago at Lincoln University. At my age, I don't have another 60 years to dream. Do you? If no, what are you going to do differently? If yes, someone would still be dreaming 60 years later and America would still be asleep.
My American dream? Personally, I've always fallen assumption to what was always told to me as a kid. Like the American dream would be a mansion, just money, cars, everything of that. But me personally, I feel like when it comes down to the American dream, it's more than just that. It's more than just a lifestyle and a way of living. I feel like me personally, it's something that's bigger. It's more not just what your legacy is based on, but what you developed as a person and for the family. Like me, the very reason why my parents even came down from here from El Salvador down to here, it really surprises me because they were in the poorest of living conditions. My father living amongst the rubbish and the savage environment of the forest and the mountains of Jucuapa, and my mother who was living off the streets of San Rafael, East San Rafael. It wasn't easy for them, honestly, and as much as I'm glad that I never had that experience for them, I still am glad that they continue to tell me and remind me every single day what I live for and what I try to work against. Because in reality, there's always going to be flaws in this world, but honestly, if there's one thing that will definitely be flawed, is the American dream. But just to make it short though, the American dream is picturing at least a family that knows how to love, a family that knows what they truly believe in and what they can really relate to and how they can relate to it. Something that they're willing to defend, something that they're willing to just stand against. If they feel like, oh, my family's being hurt, then they'll stand against the tide. They're going to be willing to take any risk that they have in order to ensure that not only their family, but what they believe in is safe. Some people can take it a step further and go to living by that rule. Others may just live by it as a calm demeanor. Me personally, I feel like I've changed in many ways ever since I've grown up, but definitely I feel like it's a tenet that I live by, and no one's going to take that away from me. As a Hispanic man living here in Durham, North Carolina, it's something that's very personal to me, and all I hope to see is just a wife, kids, nice little house, yeah, certainly, but I don't need a mansion to actually be American. In fact, that's really the basics of it. Just living alone on this soil that's been spilled by many blood, many factions, many beliefs. It just means that we're family. We'll hurt together and we'll suffer together. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have to be far apart from each other.
Dream conceived in truth can never die. For me, what is my idea of the American dream? It's for any person who sets foot on American soil, which would include my Nigerian father, and for them to be able to dream without fears, to be able to be successful, to have equal opportunities, to have the ability to prosper and to flourish, to be educated at any level and at any age, but again, the ability to dream, achieve, and do what you desire for your own pursuit of happiness.
I am pleased to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Reginald Hildebrand. He was a professor of African American Studies and History at Williams College in Williams, Massachusetts, and at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. After retiring from UNC, he served for 3 years as an adjunct of history at our own Durham Tech Community College. He's the author of The Times Were Strange and Stirring, Methodist Preachers and the Crisis of Emancipation, and is currently working on a book with the working title, The Cleverest Document Issued This Century, about Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the meaning of freedom. In 2012, he was chosen to receive the Tanner Faculty Award of Excellence in undergrad teaching at UNC Chapel Hill. He is a member of the Historical Society of North Carolina, a former co-chair of the North Carolina Freedom Monument Project, and a former trustee of the North Carolina Humanities Council. In addition, he has served as a member of the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission and as a member of the advisory board of the North Carolina Historical Review. In 2018, he served as a member of the Historic Civil Rights Commensuration Task Force of the town of Chapel Hill. Hildebrand received his BA and MA from Howard University and his PhD from Princeton. He was also featured in the PBS documentary, The Black Church, in February of last year. And without further ado, please welcome Dr. Reginald Hildebrand.
One day last month, I saw two striking news stories right next to each other. The first announced that the Pfizer pharmaceutical company was opening a brand new clinical manufacturing facility in Durham at a cost of $68.5 million that would bring new jobs and opportunities to the city. The headline of the other story said, and I quote, "Pistol found at scene of Durham shooting that left 2 teens dead, 4 injured." That story was about the violent deaths of 2 young people who were 19 and 15 years old, and the wounding of 4 children as young as 12 and 13. Last year in Durham, many beautiful buildings were built, and many beautiful lives were lost. In the words of Charles Dickens, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. The title that Martin Luther King chose for his last book poses a critical question that demands a real answer from us. The title of the book was, "Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?" In times of confusion and despair, people and communities need a dream powerful enough to lift them and guide them and keep them moving forward, even when the way forward is difficult and dangerous and costly. Reverend King understood that. Of course, he provided leadership, organization, tactics, plans, strategies, and proposed legislation. But he lifted, inspired, and encouraged us with a dream. Using the words of Howard Thurman, we could say that King was the authentic embodiment of a dream. He lived it, talked it, felt it, and thought it, until at last the magic of its power became to many what it was to him. He gathered into the sweep of his concern the tragic plight of all victims of injustice and hate. With them, he made common cause. King spoke of the American dream, of the dreams of his people, and of the dream instilled in him by his faith. Through his dedication to pursuing justice, through inclusive, courageous, nonviolent direct action, he worked to move us toward achieving the dream of becoming what he called the beloved community. He was indeed the embodiment of a dream for which he lived and died. It was just a few weeks after the triumph of the March on Washington and his I Have a Dream speech that Reverend King performed one of the most difficult duties he ever had to perform during his entire career as a leader and as a minister. He delivered the eulogy for 3 of the 4 girls who were killed in the racist bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. 3 of the girls were 14 years old, and the other was just 11. They were so young. Their lives were so precious. How could they have been the victims of brutal, bloody violence? King had seen a lot, and he had been through a lot, but their deaths greatly affected him. Can anyone doubt how Reverend King would have reacted if he had been living in Durham in August 2019, when 9-year-old Zion Person was shot and killed while riding in the back seat of his aunt's car to get snow cones? Or when 12-year-old Tyveen McLean was shot and killed in July of 2020 by a stray bullet that came from outside while he was inside just visiting a friend. And on April 4th last year, the date of the anniversary of Reverend King's assassination, on that day, a 15-year-old boy was shot to death in Durham by another 15-year-old boy and a 16-year-old. Regrettably and tragically, it seems that we cannot protect our children from our children, and that too many young people, for too many young people, a happy, safe childhood is just a dream. During the summer of 1966, Reverend King said, "I'm sick and tired of violence. I'm tired of shooting. I'm tired of hatred. Violence, whoever inflicts it, violence is a source of fear. It is the bedrock of all oppression. It reduces people to things, objects to be eliminated, or just collateral damage. It wounds families, a wound so deep and so enduring that it is beyond description. For too many young men, violence and guns are as seductive as they are destructive. And some young men feel that the only way they can avoid becoming victims of violence is to get their own firepower and demonstrate that they have the capacity to inflict violence on others. Communities in the grip of fear, believe that providing information about shooters could make them and their families the targets of retaliatory violence. So they remain silent. The fact is that our society, our nation, and our popular culture are addicted to violence. In music and in movies, we romanticize and celebrate gangsters and gangsters. My generation grew up watching Gunsmoke, The Rifleman, and Have Gun Will Travel. A president is never more popular than when he takes the nation to war, and never more unpopular than when he says that a war is no longer serving a purpose and has to end. We don't build monuments for people who make peace. In his last book, Reverend King wrote, "Violence is the antithesis of creativity and wholeness. It destroys community." He knew that for justice to prevail, violence itself had to be overcome. He dreamed of communities where none shall be afraid. When he received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, King said, "I refuse to accept despair. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nation, can be lifted from the dust of shame." He went on to say that he was not just concerned about physical violence. He explained, "I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits." He warned against creating lonely islands of poverty surrounded by material prosperity. He referred to, and I quote, "glistening towers of glass and steel easily seen from slum dwellings." That was his dream then, and it must be our dream now. Fortunately, Durham is blessed with some remarkable dreamers. There are many groups and individuals doing good work. Among them are the Religious Coalition for a Nonviolent Durham, the violence prevention program called Bull City United, the strong, courageous women who organized the group called Guns Down, Hearts Up, and the new community center on East Main Street. I believe that Reverend King would call the leaders, members, and supporters of those organizations drum majors for peace and justice, healing and hope. If he were here today, I believe that he would want to work with them and to be part of their vigils and demonstrations and support their programs for youth. He would pray with them and encourage them and join them in the work of healing. With them, he would make common cause. And aren't we blessed to have a prophet named Sidney Brody, who made a beautiful memorial quilt out of the ugliness of killings. Each carefully crafted patch is a remembrance of a life lost and helps us understand what Reverend King meant when he said, "We are tied together in a single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." And so, my friends and colleagues at Durham Tech, we, each of us, must do whatever we can to help tip the balance in order to make this the best of times, not the worst. To make this the age of wisdom, knowledge, skills, opportunity, and safety, not the age of foolishness and ugliness and violence. To make this the age of homes and families and communities, not the age of homelessness and poverty and fear. During this celebration of the life of Martin Luther King, we must rededicate ourselves to the dream.
My dad immigrated from Taiwan. Mom immigrated from the Philippines.
Both of my parents are from Hungary, Durango, Mexico.
Philippines, Trinidad and Tobago.
My mom immigrated to the United States in the late 70s from Pakistan. My dad came by himself to the US. His entire family to this day still lives in Denmark.
My dad grew up in communist Hungary and he came to America for a better life.
My parents' American dream was that their daughters would grow up to be amazing people.
They really looked out for our generation, these first gens, because we have it so easy.
I remember coming home and my parents would be working until like 3 a.m. Trying to figure out how they can afford putting us to private school and giving us the best education, live a good life, a long and prosperous life is what my parents would say. So
I might define the American dream slightly differently than some other people. To me, the American dream is the rights to life, liberty, and property.
The American dream, I think, is just all about opportunity. I think it's the chance.
The American dream is definitely something that's in your control and something that's totally out of your control. So it's all about just circumstance and hard work and determination.
And I think the ability to do what you want is really a huge part of the American dream. And so in that sense, I think I am living the American dream right now.
For me, I feel like I'll achieve the American dream once I can take care of my parents, once I can buy them an expensive home. My mom doesn't even drive, but she wants a Lexus. And once I can get her that, I feel like I've done my job.
The American dream doesn't just stop with them. I think that I'm continuing it for them. And then when I have kids, that will still continue because you won't forget the original story. You won't forget like where they came from.
When I hear the term second-class citizen in America, I think of someone who is not afforded the respect and treatment they deserve as human beings, someone who is overlooked, underrepresented, and someone who does not have equitable access to the resources and opportunities that a first-class citizen has.
I would like to introduce the I Have a Dream Awards. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King said many things. One of the things he said was, "Use me, God. Show me how to take who I am, who I want to be, what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself." So today, I would like to start by saying thank you. Thank you to a community, to a college, to my colleagues, and to the committees that are devoted to honoring the life, the mission, the memory, the purpose, and the passion of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Also, I would like to thank our donors, our past, our present, and our future donors who have helped us and will continue to help us to do this great work. Finally, I would like to say thank you to our donors, to our community, to our students, to our faculty and staff, to our administrators, and to our board of directors. We appreciate you making this possible.
Hello, I'm Tia Pope, a cosmetology student at Durham Tech Community College, and I am grateful to say thank you so much for selecting me as one of this year's MLK scholarship recipients. I would like to read to you my scholarship essay titled "Step Up and press on. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is inspirational with a legacy of impact. Faith is taking the first step even when you do not see the whole staircase. This quote from MLK means a lot to me. It embodies how I live my life. One of the most challenging things that I have encountered is uncertainty. Not seeing the whole staircase and not knowing where the staircase is going. Over time, I've learned that with each step I take, I'm not that far away from the next one. So therefore, I'm empowered to take another step. Today, there are so many things feeding into uncertainty. We have a pandemic, we have misinformation, we have general confusion. All of this takes a toll. And while reflecting on the MLK quote, I face the unknown with faith and great expectation. I've taken a lot of time and steps out on faith to serve others. Pursuing my cosmetology licensure is me taking steps towards helping and serving myself. In a way, the cosmetology program is symbolic of me putting on my oxygen mask before I help another put theirs on. Despite the pandemic and other circumstances, I'm pursuing my dream of working as a licensed cosmetologist. 18 years ago, I was visiting a plantation in South Carolina. I learned that that was where my ancestors had lived, specifically my great-grandmother. It was surreal just being there in that small wooden shack. And while I was there, I noticed a hot comb that still had animal fat in it. I was shocked to see such a familiar object, and I had asked my mother if it was real and if the comb belonged to my great-grandmother. She confirmed that it was, and as I held it, I wondered what she dreamed of as she pressed her hair with that comb. Holding that comb planted a dream in me to know more about my history, my hair, the hair of other people, all densities, lengths, and textures. And even with odds, I will pursue and push myself to keep dreaming while inspiring others to do the same. I have had dear friends pass away where it still continues to affect me, even today. They lost their chance to make their dreams a reality. I feel them urging me to dream, to take the time to care for my interests, to make my dreams a reality. I'm taking another step on faith to complete my program and meet my career goals. I'm learning so much about hair, skin, and nails, and the power of transforming one's look. The intimacy that comes with the act of grooming and an ingenuity that has cultivated the industry has me nothing short of excited and motivated. Just knowing the power of a pressing comb and in many conversations to be had over the service gives me chills. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed by my practicals or an impending state board exam, I remember that I need to have faith. I remind myself that, Tia, you do not yet see the full staircase. Oh, but when you do, I'll have my powerful legacy to reflect on, founded on solid rock. Thank you for listening.
How long? How long must I endure being treated with disdain in the country of my birth? How long must I be treated as a nigger? As a black man in America, these are the incessant thoughts that plague me. I desire to study law, and that's the reason I've embarked on this educational journey. The reason behind my interest in law is that I feel it will equip me with the tools needed to make a positive difference in people's lives. And this hope is what gives me strength. However, of recent, my hope has started to wane. Day to day, I'm reminded that it matters not who you are, how well-spoken you are, or how much intelligence you possess, but you will never be considered more than a nigger. Life in this white world makes it difficult to stave off negative thoughts about the true nature of man. It's made me question if there's even any point in trying to help others. Why should I sacrifice my life for those that hate and ridicule me? Those that feel that the pigment of my skin allows them to call me a boy no matter my age. Those that are unwilling to even recognize my personhood by simply acknowledging that my life matters. Am I deserving of being executed in the street by police merely based on the color of my skin? I'm struggling to maintain my optimism about America. struggling to continue believing that racial equality is ever within our grasp. Then I remember the words of Dr. King. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Although admittedly, I have often picked up the cup, I constantly remind myself that I mustn't drink from it. I must not allow myself to fall into the snare of hatred simply because it is the easy route. It is easy to recoil into our own communities. However, anything good must be fought for, as has been the case throughout history. In order not to erase the gains of the last century, the gains that our ancestors have labored so hard to acquire through blood and tears. For if we give up on the good fight, we let those who are desiring to sow seeds of hate win. We give them the reins and allow them to steer America back into a period that was rife with inequality. America was founded upon the qualities and the principles of freedom and equality, but has long denied persons of color these same guarantees. Black people have repeatedly been shown that the so-called American dream does not apply to us. However, I believe, just as Dr. King did, that we are not without hope. I believe that we have the power to compel the fulfillment of these promises, but not without the effort of multitudes. And I intend to continue that fight and help America live up to its promises for all men.
Hi, my name is Nikki Barth. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm an instructor for the massage therapy program here at Durham Tech. I've been asked to answer the question, do you think that the American dream is achievable for everyone? The American dream, to me, is the promise of freedom, the ability to be whoever you want, and the promise that with hard work, everyone can experience upward social mobility and achieve success. In 2017, the Federal Reserve reported that the top 1% of wealth owners controlled nearly 40% of the country's wealth. It was also estimated at that time through the Boston Consulting Group that by 2021, that number would increase to 70%. So I think we're asking the wrong question. We shouldn't be asking if the American dream is achievable for everyone. What we should be asking is it equitable? Does everyone have the same opportunity to achieve the dream that they want to achieve? And right now, unfortunately, I think that the answer to that is no.
When I ask you, what is the American dream? What comes to your mind? Is it wealth and success? How about opportunity? How about freedom to live as you desire and pursue? Or maybe it's intangible, an idea openly adapted and adopted through one's ideals and beliefs. Many Americans have different visions of what defines the dream. For the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his was a vision of universalism and equality through hard work and dedication to his fellow man. During a commencement speech in June of 1961, Dr. King gives perspective on what the American dream should mean. As young African American graduates were being addressed at Lincoln University, categorized as a historically black college or university, or HBCU, Dr. King points out this country's shares of inequalities and inequities in creating the nation, and the hypocrisies in the concept that all men are created equal. Dr. King's heartfelt plea for exponential change among the nation's citizens is a call to all of us, working diligently toward peace, goodwill, and equality as a national and global effort. He reminds us that we must do so diplomatically and morally, and that it is our duty to be expeditious in our effort. 60 years since that speech, Dr. King's message still resonates from the great halls of universities to the underappreciated bastions of education like HBCUs and community colleges. It is a message of hope and caution to future generations of all ethnicities and creeds, reminding all to remain diligent in becoming one entity bent on unity and peace. The American dream should not be defined by physical gain and attainment, but from sociological and psychological oneness and atonement. With work, through compassion, empathy, and education, through interaction and experiences, we strengthen as a nation and strive to become better human beings.
This question is really challenging me for so many different reasons. The term second-class citizen and being from a marginalized community, this hits too close to home at times. But nevertheless, I will attempt to answer the question. I believe it will be imperative for us to elevate our own humility if we want to elevate and address how people are classified in our society. We're not the center of the universe, and just because someone does not have the same rights that I have does not mean that they're below me, and nor does it mean that we're ahead of them. In fact, there's a lot of opportunity for learning and our own growth when exemplifying humility. It's an act that can bring us closer together, even when there are many, many differences. And once we're willing to elevate our own understanding of who we are, then we'll organically lift those around us without even thinking about it.
We have reached the end of an event that we hope has been educational, inspiring, and energizing. On behalf of the entire Martin Luther King Jr. Planning Committee, we thank you. We thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. We thank you for your support. In brief, we thank you for who you are, whoever you happen to be. We thank you, and we respect you. As we end, I would like to leave you with a Dr. King quote that happens to be one of my favorite quotes. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Please think about those words, especially in the context of a global pandemic and all of the various current events that we've encountered over the last few weeks. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you.
Let us pray. We thank Thee for this place in which we dwell, for the love that unites us, for the peace accorded us this day, for hope with which we expect the morrow, for health, the work, the food, and the hands that prepared it, for the bright skies that make our life delightful, and for our friends in all parts of the earth. Spares to us our friends, soften to us our enemies. Bless us if it may be in all our innocent endeavors. If it may not, give us strength to encounter that which is to come, that we may brave in peril, constant in tribulation, temperate in wrath, and in all changes of fortune, and down to the gates of death. Let us be loyal and loving one to another. Amen.